Hello and welcome. My name is Matt. I'd like to start by saying thank you for choosing to spend some time with us today. I appreciate it whenever we raise the question of mental health or even our mental makeup. We can get a little bit uncomfortable and feel a little bit apprehensive. So I'd like to just put your mind at ease. An Inkblot test is quite a clever and sneaky little study that's been ongoing for almost 100 years. It was created by Herman Rorschach in 1921, and it works on the principle that throughout our life we accumulate experience, and these experiences leave a pattern on our brain. So when our brain sees a certain kind of scenario or even a certain image or hears a certain sound, it generates a response or attaches a connotation. So when I show you a certain kind of image, your brain sees an image and generates a response. Now, depending on the kind of life you've led or the kind of relationships you've maybe had, that can alter what you are likely to see. So if you see something and say, oh, I see this, because of all the study and the research that's been done with the Inkblot test, we know that a person that's maybe experienced X, Y, and Z might say this. It's not full proof. And there's no guarantee, but it's an indication, and you might find it's a little bit insightful. If nothing else, it's a relaxing experience. You get to lay back. I'll show you there'll be 10 plates in total that I'll show you. And initially, I'll give you an example. This is plate 1, okay? And I'll give you a little bit of time to look at the plate, and you'll just tell me what you see, okay? I'll take a note of your answer. Once we went through all 10, I'll then go through each slide individually and explaining what people usually see and what it might usually mean. I'll take my notes away, and with my colleagues we'll generate a report of a kind of profile that we base your Inkblot answers, and it's almost like a character profile we create. And I said, if nothing else, you can take it with a pinch of salt and say, well, this was relaxing, but I don't believe in this. But we have many, many, many examples, many cases of people thinking, wow, you're right. I do have this kind of social anxiety. I do have an argument with my sister, my mother, my brother that I haven't really resolved. And it can be quite shocking, actually, how revealing the Inkblot test is. But relax, because all this is help. So even if you take nothing from it, it's fine. But even if you take one thing, one learning opportunity to improve yourself, to make yourself happier, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We just want to be as happy as we can on this rock in the middle of space. Okay? Okay. Now, again, there are no right and no wrong answers in an Inkblot test. Just tell me what you see, and if you feel like you need to elaborate, you can. Okay? Relax. Take a deep breath in. I'll present you with the first card. Now, after this, I will cover my face with the card, like so. And the reason for that is because I wouldn't want your reaction to have an impact on my facial expression that might then skew your complete answer. Okay? Normally you do a Rorschach test side by side, but I think the eye contact in this case is helpful. Alright, so again, first plate. Tell me what you think and what you see. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to jot down some notes. Okay. Now, after the 10 plates are concluded, I'm not going to give you the criteria of what I'm looking for beforehand, again, in case it skews your answer. Okay. Fine. Number 1. Done. On to number 2. Number 2. Again, just have a look at it and tell me what you see. Okay. No, that's absolutely fine. Again, I'll reiterate that there are no wrong answers in the Inkblot test. It's just your interpretation, what you see with your eyes, what your brain attaches to that image. Okay, good. Now we move on to number 3. Which is this. Number 3. Okay. All right. Okay. Anything in particular? Again, it's absolutely fine. Honestly, do not worry, okay? You're doing perfectly well. All right. And now we move on to number 4. Number 4. You can have a good look. Just think about what it is you see. Very good. And what did you find in number 4? Okay. Anything else? Perfect. Okay. This is the halfway point. Number 5. Number 5. Good. Penny for your thoughts on number 5. Okay. Interesting. Don't read too deeply into me saying interesting. Maybe it's part of the test. I wouldn't put anything past Mr. Rorschach. Okay. Okay. Now, that is the halfway point. If I take a minute just to, again, take a deep breath for me. And one more. Good. It's just important to kind of find our center and relax, and we can resume. Sure. This is number 6. Okay, can have a look and think. Good. Number 6, please. I see. Okay, I understand. All right. Very good. Okay. And now we move on to number 7. Number 7. All you're doing is telling me what your brain tells you. It's very, very simple. Okay? Good. And what did you think of number 7? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. 3 more to go. And this is number 8. Number 8. Again, nothing complicated, just telling me your thoughts. And what were those thoughts? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sure. All right. Just 2 more to go. And I will reiterate, you've done so well. It's not as easy as it looks, sitting there doing nothing. Just kidding. Number 9. Good. Very good. You're almost there. I promise to buy you a coffee when we're done. Number 9. Sure. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Again, your answers can be as complete, as long or as short, as compact as you think they should be. You are the boss here. You dictate the terms of engagement. Good. All right. Final card. Number 10. All right. Now, if you can just give me your thoughts on the 10th and final plate. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Really? Okay. All right. Okay. I'm not actually going to review or even reread these notes in this session. I said our report will be compiled after. What I will and I would like to do is review each of the 10 plates with you and kind of explain what some people see in certain circumstances. Okay, so I'm pretty much disregarding your answers for right now. I know what they were. The paper knows at least. I haven't taken too much note of them. I was just dictating and copying for you. So when I'm reading the meaning of the cards, or at least explaining a little bit of the cards, you won't feel offended. It's nothing personal. Okay? Your answers were standard. You have nothing really to worry about, okay? Alright. We'll go back to card number 1. So I'm holding the cards up now in kind of an isolation. So Herman, when he was designing the Inkblot test, and obviously it went through many iterations, but the first card is deliberately straightforward. Most people will see a bat or some kind of winged creature. Nothing, there isn't too much room, too much scope here for anything too advantageous. Most responses on slide 1 are the subject asking, what kind of questions can I ask? What does it mean? What kind of answer should I give? So it's really the subject looking for kind of validation. So plate 1, you being the subject. Plate 1 is more really of an introduction. We don't have too much meaning attached with the answer. And curiously, in most cases, the most telling part of the subject's answer isn't actually the words they use, isn't the description they even give. A lot of it is to do with location. What part of the card are they focusing on? What are they honing in on? And even more importantly than location is latency. Now, latency is another word for a lag or a delay. So from the point I show you the card to the point you start talking, that's the latency. And this is a very useful tool for gauging moments of hesitation as to why we would be hesitating at a certain slide. Because generally this slide means this, so if there's hesitation, maybe there's conflict there. Okay, so we'll get into that. Now one such card. Now, card number 2. Most people, and when I say most, I mean the majority. Bear in mind, the majority can be a fairly small figure as long as it's the most of all the figures. So it doesn't mean everyone. But most people see 2 people almost high-fiving or dancing, having a nice time. A smaller number of people, instead of seeing 2 heads here, they will see blood. They'll see blood spatter here. And this can quite often appear in someone who has a fairly short fuse, who feels that maybe a little bit angry at the world, who, it doesn't take much for them to kind of get super stressed and super angry about even minuscule things. That's what that blood can quite often indicate. Okay? Now, this was slide number 3. And this is a curious little slide. And it's actually one of my most favorites. It's playful. Most people see 2 human beings. Most people. Or maybe they see the butterfly in the center. If a person or the subject didn't see the people or the butterfly, they may have saw almost like an alien race, kind of bent down with almost an aggression. That can quite often be a symptom of a social anxiety, having some kind of issue with interaction, social interaction. If they aren't seeing 2 people here, and maybe their mind is apprehensive around social interaction, social engagement. Can that be something we could explore if a subject was to present with those kind of responses? Now, number 4, this plate is generally known as the father figure. Quite a large and almost like the image is looking down upon you, like an authoritative figure. Now, people have seen all sorts of things in this image. Generally, so people kind of see an animal hide, or it's generally seen, like I said, as an authoritative image. However, if you don't see that kind of almost like deer hide outline, if you're seeing something more prominent, it could be that you have unresolved issues with men, perhaps with an authoritative figure in general, or one in particular in your life. It's seen as a very masculine image, and if that isn't recognized by the brain, in some cases it can mean that there's a resentment towards men. And quite right. Okay. Now, number 5, for the observant among you, will think this kind of looks like slide number 1. And you'd be right to think that. It's very, very predictive. It's what we call a change of pace. Okay, so you went through a series of fairly challenging plates, especially the father figure being the previous plate. It's a lot for the mind to consider. So Rorschach puts in a change of pace plate. There's nothing really to be drawn here. It's quite obviously some kind of butterfly or bat. If you're finding something inconspicuous here, it's very unusual. Alright. Now, this leads us on to number 6. And this again is a playful little slide. And this one's curious. Research and case studies suggest that if you're from the Americas, instead of talking about what you see, you're more likely to talk about the texture of the image. Europeans, the African nations, they tend to talk about, again, it looks like a bear pelt or a bear hide. For some reason, the Americas seem to focus more on the texture of the image. Okay. And this can be, or has been known as, quite an intimate card. Almost like a romantic card. So if you are seeing an image, it's unusual but not unheard of. Okay? Now, slide number 7. Here. This is generally known as the mother card. Okay? If the subject hesitates with their answer, if they don't immediately see maybe 2 kids or a motherly figure, if there's hesitation, it might suggest there's an unresolved conflict between the subject and their mother, or maybe a child or a younger person in their life. Not always, but it's certainly, there's evidence again to back up these claims or these statements, but not necessarily. Maybe you just didn't necessarily, maybe you saw something in the middle. But I, myself, quite clearly see two kind of almost like grandmothers. The kind of hair up in the arms. But again, what we see is the sum total of our brain's experiences, saying those images must mean this. That's why it's interesting. Okay. Now, number 8. Now, this again is what's known as a change of pace. It's the introduction the first time the subject is seeing multiple colors besides red and black. Black isn't, of course, a color, it's the absence of light. So I'm told. But there isn't that much individually here. You see two kind of four-legged animals. But what's more importantly here, this should be seen as a pleasant card. If there's hesitation or discomfort in the subject with their response or with the card, it might mean that they struggle to come to computerize and experience and understand complex emotions. Okay? What I mean by that is that this is all emotion. And some people struggle to kind of comprehend and to compute complex emotions and kind of intense situations. And it's been known that this slide can cause discomfort because it's just too intense. There's a lot of complex emotion. Okay? In some cases, this slide has actually been a little bit distressing to people. I myself find it very pleasant to look at. It's bright and it's colorful. But again, it's just the sum total of our brain's experiences. Now, this is the second last slide. And the last slide I'll spend a bit more time on. Number 9. Now, very similar to number 8. And that 8 focuses on complex emotions, and if you hesitate with a response or don't find it uncomfortable, it's because, as I said, you might not enjoy or might not be able to process complex emotions. This is talking about complex data. That might seem a stretch, but even in the 1920s, they had complex data. There's a lot of information here, and for some people, it can be considered overwhelming. Okay? Now there's this muted chromatic color. There's so many muted chromatic features on the page. Now for me, I think it's kind of dull and bland. I don't dislike it. But some people, again, if you're struggling with this slide, it could be that you struggle to make sense of really complex data. Not necessarily, but perhaps. There are actually quite few pulls. There are very few meaningful images to be seen here. It's more really about whether there's an immediate response. Okay? Now, slide number 10. Just take a moment to have a look at this again. Now, slide 10 is quite similar to slide 8 in terms of structure. This is more as again, it's quite a playful little plate. This is more of it's misleading. Rorschach wasn't looking for any one response from this card. He was using it almost as a neutral card for the subject to project how they're feeling and what they expect to hear back from the test. So if at the end of it they're feeling like, oh, I really want to know this or I want to know that, that will become apparent in their response. Now, personally, 10 is quite interesting to me. Now, I have heard and I have seen people seeing each of these little creatures almost like they're fanning with a big kind of palm leaf these two larger creatures. Creatures are almost holding hands, so maybe it's a celebration of some kind. They're almost under a chandelier, and maybe there's some greenery at their feet. Maybe something's been planted. Maybe it's a sign of growth. I have heard all of these responses from individual people. But the plate itself, as I said, is more of a red herring. Very, very rare is it that people pick up on these details. They're more focused on getting the results of the test than they are of the complexity of this slide. It's not a coincidence that there's so much detail, so many individual little stories happening and taking place, full of bright colors, loads of color, and it's almost always missed. It's fascinating. Now, that does conclude our Inkblot test. As I said, all the notes that we've taken in this session is actually recorded, which the team and I will watch back, analyze my notes. As I said, we'll build up a personality profile for you in a report form, issue that out to you with a series of suggestions of things that you might want to have a look at. It could be that your answers were completely normal and there's almost very little recommendation other than keep being happy. Or maybe you're not happy with being normal. Maybe you're looking to inject something a bit different, add a bit of spontaneity perhaps to your life. All we'll do is present the data to you and make some very kind of lighthearted and light recommendations. Alright? How did you find today? Inkblot tests I've sat 3 in my life, and they were surprisingly consistent. I haven't sat the Inkblot test since I've studied it. I'd sat them prior just because I found them interesting. Some consider them a pseudoscience. Others believe firmly in them. There's been a multitude of entrance exams that have incorporated the work of the Rorschach or Inkblot test into them. There is a whole 100 years worth of data there to be used, to be correlated against, and if you don't want to believe in it, don't. But it's a relaxing experience to have somebody talk you through the Rorschach test, or at least I find it relaxing. I hope maybe you did too. Sure. I don't think there's any value in immediately coming back to resit the test. One, because you'll remember what the images were like. You'll remember the instructions and kind of explanations I gave. And 2, it's the same person sitting the test. You haven't undergone any new experiences, so therefore you couldn't really expect to get a different result. I said, unless you remembered what I told you and you answered differently. But then that would produce a result that couldn't help you, because it wouldn't be you. Precisely. That's exactly right. Yeah. Sure. No, I said, take your time, and we won't be more than a week in getting the report to you. If you just pop in past reception on the way out, yeah, give you everything you need, and we'll mail it out to you. We'll also email you a copy as well. We're trying to be environmentally friendly, exactly. Sure. No, it's my absolute pleasure, it really is. No, thank you. Come back anytime. And if you ever just want a counselling session, there's a website called BetterHelp. You'll get the link for it, the reception. They've actually partnered up with us, and there's a lot of online counsellors now that's part of this website that allows and affords individuals such as yourself to seek help online without having to venture out of their house and kind of face the stigma maybe that some people attach to mental health. Yeah, sure. Again, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you. I'll see you soon.